Hi, welcome to the Startup Leader Show, where we learn lessons from leading startup founders and executives. I'm your host, Lisa Dreher. I'm really excited to introduce our guest for today, Kailey Theroux. She is the COO of CM Technology. Welcome to the show, Kailey.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, why don't we start by having you tell our audience just a little bit about what CM Technology does?
Sure. CM Technology, we call it CMT. We are global services provider specializing in LEO teleports and ground operations, providing turnkey LEO satellite ground solutions that include LEO tracking antennas, flexible SLAs, network operations licensing, and unified TT&C services. We simplify global deployment across a diverse topography. We're supported by 50 built-to-spec teleports all across the world. And additional locations are actually coming online soon. We're adding on to our list, which is great. But the most important thing is CMT leverages significant reduction in capital expenditures by leasing space to our customers. And I mean, our contract options are so flexible. It's almost like, they can kind of do anything. We'll work with them through anything. So.
Got it. Got it. So maybe tell us a little bit about the types of companies that are working with CMT and what sort of use cases they have.
Okay, so we're working with several large LEO satellite operators to support their network ground infrastructure. We have 50 teleport sites worldwide to make that possible. Although I can't share any more information, unfortunately, on that and who they are. But I can say that we are extremely excited about the future and these new LEO mega constellations. We're also working with other companies to provide custom-built LEO tracking antennas in various sizes and frequencies as well. So, yeah, we've got a lot of small companies, big companies, government. Unfortunately, I can't say as much as I would like to say.
Sure. Well, it's a really exciting area because, like you said, the LEO constellations are going up right now. I saw a big line of them really early one morning when it was actually clear in Seattle, not cloudy. Saw the big line go overhead. It was an amazing thing to see. Absolutely. So, kind of along those lines, what do you see as some of the biggest changes in the satellite industry today?
The biggest changes is just with going from GEO to LEO. Most of the satellites, we're in a geosynchronous world, if you will. And now the direction that everyone's kind of turning is to low Earth orbit, just because that will promote worldwide connectivity. There's 40%, and I'll probably mention it again, of individuals, in the world that do not have access to the internet. So what does that mean? They're missing out on education, healthcare. There's just so much stuff involved in just having that privilege of having, the internet and all that stuff. So that's the biggest change. We're working to change that. And also to support our country as far as like national security. One challenge is that I can see is with the supply chain. It's moving at a very quick pace, the LEO market, right? So they're launching so many satellites very quickly. So it's very hard because there are only so many vendors, and with equipment and stuff, it's just, it's a struggle to keep up, but we're definitely improving. And I think we'll adjust as time goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an exciting space, and there's so much that's changing. So the kind of thinking about changes, right? We see a lot of things happening with the commercialization of space. A great example of this is SpaceX's recent crewed launch that just happened. So what do you think of that?
It's incredible. It's amazingly exciting. The launch last Sunday was actually an act of history. SpaceX is opening what many think is a new era in human spaceflight. So I believe that SpaceX is actually leading the path to making missions to the moon and to Mars. They mentioned Mars possible. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, kind of extending upon that thought, what do you see in terms of the commercialization of space? How is that impacting the industry as a whole?
well, it's greatly impacting the industry, but it isn't just about sending the elite on extraterrestrial excursions, right? It's about transitioning the space industry from one propped up by the government to something self-sufficient.
Yeah.
It's about private enterprise investing in rockets, in equipment, in experiments in outer space. Turning over some of this work to private industries will actually allow NASA, government agencies, to focus more on even more ambitious missions. Sorry, commercialization though is it's a contributor factor to the future of space.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much for the overview and letting us know what CM Technology is doing, or CMT. Let's jump into our lessons conversation. And, the first thing I really want to ask you about is, what have been some of the biggest keys to your business success so far?
First and foremost, the people in my business are key. You need to have the right people on your team with the right amount of knowledge and a strong drive. A well-built, solid, robust team is actually the backbone. The second thing I would say is persistence. There are a lot of false starts, losses, and detours as far as building a business, right? But the key to coming out ahead, despite all the bumps and bruises, is to persist. I mean, very rarely is your journey to success a straight line. Trending upward at that. You have to want it bad enough. You have to work for it bad enough. And if you fall, you have to get back up and you have to keep going. The third thing is building relationships. In the SATCOM industry, you're going to fail if you don't establish relationships with the other players. Period.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah. It's a big, but yet small industry in terms of, there are a lot of people that have been in the industry for a really long time. So, yeah, I think you're right. Relationships are key. So what would you say have been some of the most valuable business lesson, or one of the most valuable business lessons you've learned over the years?
I would say communication. Communication can prevent and fix almost any problem. That is number one. It's the number one thing from my experience, and I cannot stress that enough. Although we do have time is a very valuable resource. If you stay in your lane and you don't procrastinate, then you're golden. Do things today, not tomorrow. Don't speed. That a lot of people try to get ahead of the game, and then they move too quickly. And that's how mistakes are made. You have to take your time, know what you're doing, relax, focus. Try not to do too much at one time. Some of my biggest mistakes, actually, they've evolved from not communicating effectively and efficiently, not enough. So I can't stress that. Like it's a huge contributing factor to success, and it's a number one thing with my employees and with anyone in the company. If you don't have that communication, then
Yeah, absolutely. So, knowing what you know now, what would you have told yourself back when you first started?
Let's see. If I started over, I would have researched the industry a lot more. I went to school for business. I'm not very technical at all, although I'm learning more every single day. It's a very complex industry. Some of the, I'll call it technical jargon, I don't fully understand yet. But again, I'm COO, I'm not an engineer, so I mean, I just have the privilege of like learning from my employees and stuff like that. But I also would have communicated better, like from the start. I feel like I could have asked more questions. I could have not been so afraid of thinking what other people think about me, whether or not they're going to question my knowledge, right? I don't have that much experience. I'm younger, but again, you learn something new every day. So if you know how things work, and you're understanding your industry and what you're doing, that's key. You have to embrace that. So if I could go back, like I would have definitely researched a lot more, because sometimes I'll be on these calls and they're talking all this, technical stuff, and I'm like, trying to figure out exactly what it means.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There was another founder I was talking to recently, and he just said, be curious and ask, like, don't be afraid to ask those questions.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I've always had that issue, like with asking questions, because again, I feel like people will question my intelligence. Like, do they think this? Do they think that? You have to just eliminate all of that stuff, not care about it, ask the questions that you need to ask, get your answers, and then move forward.
Right. It was really funny. He told a story about being in a meeting where they were talking about a 6-foot scissor. And he was thinking to himself, one, who's ever heard of 6-foot scissors? And what would you use those for? And so he finally asked the question, and they were talking about a scissor lift, like a mechanical.
Like scissors.
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes if it's not your industry or it's something that you're still learning, asking those questions, like, it's not a big deal, right? Of course, they laughed at him and gave him a framed picture of scissors, which is very funny. So anyway, I guess you have to have a sense of humor too, right?
There's no question that really is I'll be blunt, it's not. If you ask a question, don't be afraid. You know what I mean? There's no questioning anything else. I mean, that was my biggest fear. If I ask this question, are they going to think that I'm brainless? I mean, that I don't know what I'm doing? There's no question that's like too stupid, if you will.
Yeah. No, I think sometimes asking those questions, I mean, there's either other people in the room that are thinking that, or that actually demonstrates and kind of emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So thinking about the business, a lot of times what happens in business is that you kind of hit this plateau and then you get stuck there. So what are some of the things that you've done to overcome that and get past those plateaus?
Well, I applied determination and a plan. I brought my team together to push beyond every plateau that stood in our way. And together we set goals, brainstormed ideas, we worked our plan, and we were successful most of the time. It's all about drive, right? So raising prices, increasing manufacturing capacity, and offering new services, that was also effective. Like I said, like we are constantly adding on to our list of offerings as a company. We started with 23 teleport locations, and now we're at 50, and we're only in year 2. Yeah, and I mean, it's just incredible.
Yeah, I've seen your announcements when you come out with new location, new teleports. So yeah, that's amazing. That's huge growth. So congratulations.
No, thank you. And then we've also, it's not just about the increase of teleport sites, it's also about the services that we offer. I mean, when I started, we weren't offering licensing services or TT&C services, but now we do. I mean, we have, and that's a huge deal. Licensing, like a lot of these companies don't want to deal with it. It's a pain.
Yeah.
And they would love nothing more than someone else to kind of take the lead and do it for them. So
Absolutely.
and that's been
Absolutely.
actually, once we added that onto our list of offerings, like we've gotten a lot of inquiries on that. So
Wow, that's great. So, I guess another lesson there is just, putting out those new offerings. You never know what might really, be a hit, right?
right. And even if you're like custom building like a tracking system, we have a manufacturer, but why not have more than one, right? Like not every customer is going to want this specific antenna system. So the more offerings we have, the better, if that makes sense. You
Yeah.
know, it gives
Yeah.
people a variety, it just gives people so many choices to choose from. And we actually, we custom build. I mean, that's you tell me what you want and we can build it for you, as long as it's within the laws of physics.
I love that. Well, great. So I want to end with one last question, which is if you could make one prediction about the future, what would it be?
So I'm in the Leo market, and I predict that the Leo network will be vital when it comes to our country's national security, especially after being threatened by other countries to destroy the geosynchronous satellites. I mean, there aren't that many. With Leo, you have hundreds and hundreds. So if a country were to destroy just one, I mean, it would be devastating to the
Right.
country. An act of terrorism. They could get in very quickly. A lot of plans are underway, and I think these plans are going to be successful, honestly, and not just for national security, but also for healthcare and education. Low Earth orbit, LEO, will bring universal connectivity to the world. And as I had mentioned before, 40% of the world has, access to the internet. That's not
That's,
even half, right?
yeah, that's crazy to think, right?
Yeah, so Leo's going to change that though.
Yeah.
It's going to make a huge difference because I feel like every person deserves to be educated and have access to information
Yeah.
point in time in the time we're living in. So yeah,
Absolutely. I think we take a lot for granted, right? Living where we do, that access is just always there. But what's ironic is that even going to rural areas of the US, or not even that far outside of some of our urban areas, you'll have either really not so great connectivity or no connectivity at all, which is really amazing. So this
yeah,
will be really interesting to see what happens with your prediction. And boy, I mean, just such an exciting area to be working in. So thank you so much for
no
joining us today. I really appreciate it. It was
problem.
so much fun.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and I hope that whoever's watching learned something or
Absolutely. I'm absolutely positive they did.
test or something. But this is a great industry to be in. I'm super excited. I never thought I'd be here, honestly. Went to school for business,
Yeah.
no idea about the space industry, but honestly, like this is where I think I need to be. And it's going to change the world. And just knowing that I can be a part of that is super exciting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Kailey. I really appreciate it. And we'll be sure to share this out with everybody out there.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.